Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Zwift Community Live broadcast of Dig Deep Coaching, stage number 16 of the virtual Grand Tour. We are following along with the Tour de France, replicating all of the critical moments with workouts, group workouts in Zwift. Alongside of me in the broadcast, we of course have Stephen Gallagher from Dig Deep Coaching, but also we have Jessica Allen from the Mitchell & Scott Pro Team and Dig Deep Coaching, one of the women coaches for Dig Deep Coaching. Good to have you two with us here in the broadcast. Thanks a lot for joining in for stage 16 and putting all this together for us. Oh, and I think
thank you for having us.
There we go. Now I got Steven. Steven, sorry about that. You were muted. You always got. We had to make sure that Steven was quiet for just a moment. No, just kidding. So good to have you here, Steven. Good to have you, Jessica. So let's get right into what's happening on the program today. We always want to give a little bit of a insight into what's happening with the stage on the day. First day of the Pyrenees. Steven, you wrote this workout and it looks like we are tackling some mountains. What is happening today?
Yeah, so today, as you said, it's the first day into the Pyrenees. We're just coming off the back of a rest day. For those guys and girls that have been, on this for the last, 2 and a bit weeks, I'm sure they were happy of the rest there. So yeah, first day into the Pyrenees. What we're looking at today is, first of all, from a persona point of view, we're acting as a GC rider. So whenever I designed the workout, I had it in the head of being a GC rider and how they might approach it. So yeah, real big stage. There was a long, there was a long lead into the mountains today. Anybody who watched the actual race coverage today or seen any highlights know that it was really, really difficult. That first 100 kilometers was, probably the hardest of the tour so far at the start. And then you've got, there was, 3 long climbs there at the end. So what we've done is I've taken in the Col de Mente, which is the penultimate climb there, at 6.9 kilometers at 8%. So we're replicating that. The fastest Strava on that was a French guy called Julien Faucon, who done it in 33 minutes. So we've taken 70% off that time to replicate that duration for that climb. And that's what we're doing straight off the bat today. Then we have a bit of recovery, and then we're into the Col de Portillon. And so we're, again, the fastest time before today's stage was Kenny Aslander of Team Sky, who had done it in 24 minutes 43 seconds. So so we're going in to replicate that, again taking the 70% rule, and then short descent off it, and then going for quite a hard finish as well. So lots of threshold work today. We don't have the same explosive efforts of what we had in the past couple of days. Anybody who done Saturday and Sunday, I did see a report from, I think it was Cycling Idiot, on his Facebook page saying that Sunday was the hardest day so far, and I'm sure it was very explosive, very difficult. So we're going into a lot of threshold work today straight off the bat. So get ready for that.
Good, yeah, and this is something that the whole threshold work world, I think that Jessica, our guest here, is going to be pretty familiar with recently. You've recently done two Grand Tour type races. I mean, you were at the Giro as well as the Tour recently. La Course, correct? Is that, unless I'm incorrect there?
Yeah, so I just finished the Giro Rosa, which is the women's only Grand Tour race of the year. It's 10 days long with no rest days. And we had two GC riders for the tour. So Annemiek van Vleuten from our team won it, and Amanda Spratt got third. And yeah, so we spent a lot of time at Threshold riding the front, keeping them safe and making sure they were able to do their thing on the climbs and secure GC.
Anything comparable today then? I mean, with what we're seeing today in these climbs to any of the stages that you guys took on. You know, I think the Pyrenees. What climbs specifically in the Rosa were you guys up to? And is there anything that you could relate to on stage 16 here? We got two Category 1 climbs, the Col de Demente as well as the Col du Portillon. Are they similar to anything that you tackled during the Rosa?
Yeah, definitely. This year's edition was really tough. We had two mountaintop finishes, one being the Zoncolan, which the men did in their Giro this year as well. And the Zoncolan's like a 10K climb at about 11% average. So quite similar to today, I guess, with like all the action being at the second, or like at the end of the race, really. So you have a lot of people trying to get into the breakaways, and we just had to ride a good tempo, making sure no one like threatening to GC got in the moves. And when breakaway that we were happy with went away, we just had to ride a good tempo to get our leaders into position for the climb and then let them fly.
Right on. Yeah, and a little bit different. So the role being played today for the athletes, Stephen, is not so much the domestic role, but more the GC role. Am I correct there? And that it's sitting in and waiting for those threshold climbs for those attacks to go. Whereas Jessica, your role is to close things down earlier on in the stage and then allow the rider to go and just do the work they need to do. Am I right on? So, Stephen, right on about that?
Yeah, I mean, from a GC perspective, trying to be able to conserve as much energy and sort of sit in the wheels as much as possible, and having somebody like Jessica or whatever to be able to ride at the front. I think Jessica's role, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but during the Giro Rosa was pretty similar to what the Team Sky have been doing the last couple of days. If we look at guys like, Luke Rowe and Egan Bernal and whatnot, we have been seeing them constantly at the front of the bunch, basically controlling the whole race because they have the favourite. Again, a bit like Jessica there with Annemiek van Vleuten, exactly the same scenario over, huge climbs. You're talking about the Zoncolan there. I think the Zoncolan would actually, stand a level above the climbs the guys done today in the Tour de France. I think is probably renowned as one of the hardest climbs in the world. So, but yeah, it's exactly the same scenario. Being able to try and make sure that the GC riders are trying to conserve as much energy as possible. But when you're on a route like the guys were doing today, you still got to ride hard. You still got, even sitting in the wheels, you're still riding at your threshold. You're still having to, make them wee digs as much as possible, especially whenever the start of the race was so hard. Everybody's going to go into these climbs quite fatigued. So, for our guys and girls today, we're going in, really hot right from the gun. So there's no lead in, there's no endurance riding before it or no tempo riding. We're going straight into basically a 23-minute threshold ride right at the start. So we're taking it down into a 13-minute block and a 10-minute block. But yeah, it's straight off the gun. Now, the benefit, what a lot of people will hopefully be able to have a wee bit of comfort from, is that we're not going into big, deep cadence work. You've seen in the past, the last couple of weeks, we've been doing a lot of cadence work, lowering the cadence, using a lot more muscular strength, because we're going straight off the bat today into a big threshold workout. Because it's so long, I want to make sure that we still have something left in the tank for later on. So, I'm asking to get about 85 RPM. I would certainly advise people to try and not drop it below 85 RPM because you're gonna bring up a lot of fatigue regardless, just doing this long effort, and we don't want to see anybody falling apart come the last climb. So Yeah.
We are getting through the warm-ups here. Let's go ahead and chat a little bit about what's happening with the workout itself. Stephen, the warm-up here at this point, 165, the usual situation, but actually the effort then after that's 20 minutes, 285 for me if I were at my FTP, based off of my FTP, and then another 10 at 300 that's coming up into the workout here. So it does look like a solid 23-minute climb in front of these riders here. Usual warm-up, though, as usual, getting the blood moving. Let's maybe default to Jessica a little bit here about what her, because we've had a lot of different people on talk about what their warm-ups are and what they're doing. And a little bit in your past about what you did to really get ready for racing. We had Graham Brown on chatting about what he would do for track racing. But Jessica, what these guys are and gals on course right now, getting through the warm-ups. We got about 16 riders here getting live coaching here. What do you usually do for your warm-up prior to a stage like this?
It really varies. Like a stage like this where, it could be quite explosive out of the guns, like everyone's trying to get into the breakaways or there's an early climb or something. We do actually do a warm-up. So we did it in the tour this year in the Giro Rosa, and there was a climb to start with. So we just did 15 minutes, 5 minutes just, spinning the legs over, and then a progressive build-up over 5 minutes to threshold, and then maybe a couple of 10, 15-second sprints. But nothing too drastic because you don't want to wear yourself out too much because you are into it. You do want to save as much energy as possible, but you also want to get the heart rate up and the legs going and prepared to go threshold when the gun goes, really.
Are you using turbo trainers on site for that then too? Like, are you riding around, or are you guys using turbo trainers, or what are you guys up to?
Yeah, we use turbo trainers. So we're sponsored by Elite. So we just use their turbo trainer system. And we also use them. We had a team's time trial as stage 1 in the Giro this year as well. And we used them. We did a recon of the course about an hour before our start time. So that took about 30 minutes. And we didn't go easy. Like, we went pretty solid just to get a feel for the course because it was on closed roads. And then we did a shorter warm-up. So normally for like a time trial, I'd do around 20, 25-minute warm-up. But because we'd already done half an hour on the road, we did just a short 15-minute one with some, power efforts there just to get the heart rate up.
Right on, gotcha. So, if the riders have, considerable efforts right up front for them, it's always, it sounds like warm-up super crucial. It sounds like you were saying, though, that perhaps not always a warm-up is involved, though, in your races. Is that right? It sounds like, not sometimes allow the race to come to you. Is that right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird because in Australia, and as a junior, we're brought up to always do these massive warm-ups before races and everything. Definitely before time trials, we still warm up. But once you get to Europe, there's not a lot of warm-ups involved at all. Unless you're starting on a mountain or it's going to be full gush from the gun, we just rock up on the start line. And when there's neutral as well in races, that also warms you up. You might have 10 minutes and Go
ahead, Stephen.
You were
going to comment on that. You were going to comment on that specifically.
Yeah, in a lot of races in Europe, as Jessica will say, especially in the elite races and the biggest pro races, you normally start in the town centre, and obviously they don't really like you going off the bat in the town centre. So the warm ups can be quite long. In fact, I done one race, I think it was in Asia once, and we had a neutralized section of over 20 kilometers. I mean, I felt like I needed a gel at the end of the warm-up or the end of the neutralized section. But so you do use that a wee bit as getting the body moving as such. And as Jessica said, whenever there's a climb straight off the bat, like everybody's doing here now, you want to have you got to get the balance between being ready and not doing too much that your body is in bits come 5 minutes or 10 minutes into the climb. So it's a personal thing as well. So
some people warm up every day.
So some people you find that some people like religiously, like they almost like the traditionally have to have their warm up.
Yeah, I think so. And it's a mental thing too, you know, like if it's worked for them once, they probably want to keep doing it. But what I find is, yeah, most Europeans don't tend to warm up that much in road races unless, yeah, it's going to be a hard start.
Right on, right on. So we're getting into it now. 13 minutes now, 285, Stephen. What are these riders looking to replicate right now for the tour today?
Okay, so this is us on the Col de Mente, and what we're doing is we're starting off in a 13-minute block at about 95% of your threshold, and then we're building up to 10 minutes at the end of that at 100%. And it's like we say here, it's come up on screen, so it's a steady tempo, so there's no jumps in it, there's no big attacks. You'll be glad to know, nor is there any sort of lower of cadence. The bad news is they're quite long. These efforts are quite long. So my advice, and I'll let Jessica chime in as well, is trying to be as conservative and as specific as possible to them zones. You don't want to go over them too much, because at the start of the ride you might feel a little fresh, or you might feel quite good, but this at the end of the 23 minutes threshold, this could come back and bite you in the butt. So you don't want to go too deep at this point, because again, there's a long way to go. So definitely don't overdo it too early.
Yeah, speak to that a little bit, maybe, Jessica, on these bigger climbs. What kind of moderation do you put on yourself? What kind of, like, how do you think about that as you do go through these intervals, and how might that relate to how these athletes need to approach a 23-minute interval at this kind of FTP, sub-FTP effort?
I like to break it down, like just thinking of like a 23-minute effort or like a 10K climb, it's pretty daunting. And right from the gun, you can start it and you're like, oh God, I got 20 minutes to go. And, you're already thinking negative thoughts. So just try to break it down, I think, into like 5-minute blocks for this particular effort. Really focus on your breathing, sitting good wills. Like I know in the starter climbs like this, even if you are feeling good, as Stephen said, you want to be conserving as much energy as possible, and just not going too deep. And yeah.
So
actually,
go ahead, Stephen.
Actually, it's a good point. Something I used to do, especially in time trials, but I can totally relate it to a long climb, is breaking things down. And I used to give myself, especially when I was suffering, I used to actually give myself finish lines. Like, I mean, physically on the road, whenever we're out on the road, I would, look at maybe at an S bend, or particularly in some of the longer climbs when I was training, I would, focus on a bend that's maybe going to take me 1.5 minutes to get to, 2 minutes. And my vision was just solely on that part. It wasn't looking right and looking up the staircase going up and up and up, because that sort of automatically cracked you. But it was just focus on one point. As soon as you get to it, my eyes would turn to something else, and then just narrow in on something else, and then get to that point. Because again, especially when you're in a box, it's really hard. And like I say, I used to do it in racing, particularly when I had to ride at the front, which I spent a lot of time doing for other people. It was just going to a certain point, getting there, going to another point, because mentally it can really eat you up, especially something that long, and especially when you've got we've got another hour to go basically as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't say that I can necessarily rate. Not too many gigantic mountains of this length in mountain biking. A very, very different type of racing, that's for sure. As far as your role at the races, Jessica, I mean, we do have some sweet pictures that you sent on over, actually, of let's see, a few of them here. I mean, first of all, we'll go to the end first of how things end up turning out here. And it looks like things went fairly well. As you guys, I see a couple of jerseys there from the efforts there, looking at the pink and the green. And your role in this whole accomplishment, though, then was to support those riders and bring them in as domestique. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure was. So in the pink there, you have Annemiek van Vleuten, and in the green is Amanda Spratt. So we went in with high GC ambitions and pulled off the first Grand Tour win for Mitchelton Scott, which was really awesome. And the green jersey there is the Mountains jersey. and Annemiek also won the points jersey. So yeah, it was really successful.
That sounds like it. It's super, super successful. And, relating these efforts, I mean, we're seeing, the kind of work that you had to put in to make this happen. I mean, we do see on the front here a picture here working, I would think, most likely around threshold. When you're on the front right here like this, is it similar to the kind of efforts that we're seeing the riders doing right now in Zwift? I mean, is this on the front when you're doing this work? Is it over FTP steady, like longer 20 to 30 minute pulls, or is it more of like an echelon pulling where you're going like over threshold for shorter periods of time over and over to keep the pace high? Like what is the go-to usually in these situations, Jessica?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. Most of it was threshold work. So this particular photo was on a flat stage of the Giro, and we have a really great sprinter, Jolien Dior from Belgium. And so just keep her safe for the sprint as well as our two GC riders. And there was a lot of crashes in this finale, and there were 11 roundabouts in the last 10 kilometers. So my job was, to stay at the front with another teammate, Sarah Roy, and just to keep the team safe, basically. So I'd be going threshold, a bit above threshold for, I think I did about 6 kilometers. And then, Roy did about 4 as well. And obviously, as you get closer to the finish line, the effort gets harder. So my effort would have been more about threshold, a bit over threshold, and Roy would have been going harder as a lot more teams wanted to be moving to the front as well. And then, sometimes we'd chop off as well. So Sarah Roy, myself, and Jolien on the hillier days, we just, as you go a bit harder at the front, then get a bit more recovery sitting on, and just work together that way. But you do really have to control your effort, because if you're doing a 10K effort and you're going well over threshold, you're not going to last. So
you ever find yourself in that situation, Jessica, where you've gone far over? Oh crap, I need to support at this point, and I'm not sure that I can pull this off any longer because of the overextension that you've made. Like, have you, like, it's, I would think in any profession, there's a learning process, especially in the sports professions, when you're testing your limits. And I think a lot of these athletes in these workouts are starting to test their limits. I mean, they're on stage 16 right now of a virtual Grand Tour, day in and day out of this, and trying to figure out where they stand. So have you found yourself in that situation, pro peloton? You're leading things out, you're trying to control things, and do you remember a specific situation like that where, look, oh man, I'm not sure I can do it, and you had to make it happen and have a breakthrough situation?
Yeah, definitely. It happened in the Giro as well. Like with lead outs, you can sometimes get a little bit too excited and you can go too early. Think you can do a massive 2K turn, but you can't. And so you've got to pull off. And so what I did is got back behind my team, tried to recover for a minute, and then get back to the front. But you do have to be careful, because it does happen a lot, but it's all about timing. And you get to the point where you know how far you can go on the front with what you're doing, and also comes to how you're feeling as well.
Like, are there teammates that you like, all right, I need to go to, I know that at this point I'm suffering, I'm way over my limit, and here's where I had at this point?
Yeah, so I just swing off and try and just get a wheel as fast as possible, preferably someone a bit larger so you get more sit, or just move further back into the bunch so you actually do get more recovery, and then, squirm my way back to the front.
We do have social media integration, so if anybody who does have any questions or comments can do so over at the Facebook. We have a tier come in saying, vamos, telling everybody to hurry up here. We're going as fast as we can, man. We're going as fast as we can. Actually, everybody's going as fast as they need to. But did you have any questions or comments for Jessica, myself, or Steven? Go ahead and bring them in. You can do so over at the Mixer channel, on Twitter at ZCommunityLive, or on the Facebook channel. Those are the channels we are currently watching. Looks like they're about to move into the next point in the climb here. 10 minutes at 300 watts it would have been for me at my FT. At my FTP. Now, all these riders in the game are doing this based on their own FTP. Just so everybody knows that you wouldn't have to, if you jumped into the workout here, you wouldn't necessarily have to the whole 300 watts. It might be more, it might be less. It's all based off your percentage of FTP rather than just a raw wattage, just so everybody knows. Stephen, we are getting into the second half then, it looks like, of the Col de Mente. Is that right? And why are we ramping it up to 100% rather than the 95 that we were at?
So yeah, you'll see, again, anybody who's been watching the tour, and again, probably Jessica can relate to this. We'll look at how Team Sky are riding at the front and how a lot of GC teams have traditionally ridden is, as they get closer to the top of the climb, to really neutralize any attacks and to make sure that somebody isn't going to make a move and somebody isn't going to attack, and certainly maybe attack in a descent. What they're trying to do is increase the pace a wee bit. So we're trying to move that pace up. Doesn't necessarily need to be something, absolutely guns blazing, but just something a bit more uncomfortable. 5% doesn't sound a lot now, but the fact that, everybody here has already done 13 minutes at 95%, a couple of minutes into this effort, I think a lot of people are going to start feeling the pinch a bit. So, halfway through this 10-minute block at 100%, I think a lot of people are going to start to feel that bit of a pinch. So, that's why we try and raise it as we get to the top, certainly in this penultimate climb. Again, I would assume that, like we've seen today, it's not total full gas within the GC guys, but you're just trying to edge that up a wee bit to make everybody else uncomfortable. So that's what we're trying to do, trying to raise it up a wee bit before we have that sort of long descent with 10 minutes in between these climbs. You'll notice that I have put the cadence quite high on the downhill as well. So we're trying to hit, over 100 RPM on this downhill and this long section in between, trying to spin it out. Again, trying to work on our activation, getting that high cadence in as well. It'll certainly help the fact that you've just done, sort of 23 minutes quite hard and about to go into really another sort of big 17-minute block as well. So yeah, that's why we're really raising it up, and I'm assuming that a lot of people are going to start feeling it quite certainly in this next 2 or 3 minutes. That's quite hard. So if you are feeling that way, if you are feeling a little bit on the ropes, as I say, just do exactly what Jessica was saying earlier on. Just focus on the end of that session, the end of this interval. Just don't think too far ahead. Okay, so just break it down. Don't worry about the next climb. Just get to the top of this one, and then we'll worry about things then. So
that's actually that's really funny. We are seeing 95%. Or one of the riders, I think it was Cycling Idiot, actually said 5% feels insanely huge right now. Like, this feels like so much more to be going this much harder. It's really, you have that term, just turning the screws, and that I think it's so perfect. That's a perfect way of putting it, that it's just this slight little turn of the knob up that can, at this longer duration, send people off the back so quickly. Both of you have experience with that. Maybe we'll go to Jessica first. Like, what kind of, as a domestique, do you make it over the mountains a lot of times? Yeah, maybe we're starting to push buttons here a little bit, but where do things stand for you? I mean, we see you at the top of a major climb here, coming over the big old smile. Are you one that starts turning the screws while your rider sits on and grabs that draft and gets led up over until it's time for them to attack? Like, how does that play out? And I would assume you've been in this role before, where you're 185 watt, well, whatever it might be, 95%. It's like, okay, it's time to turn it up to that 100%.
With these big mountain passes, I'm not one to normally be up there. That photo on the top of the Zoncolan, I was actually about 20 minutes from the first rider. And
we got a big smile on your face, though. Something must have went right.
Yeah, teammate Annemiek won, so that was fantastic. But where I really have to ramp it up is leading into the climb to make sure they're in good position. So we had Annemiek and Amanda Spratt that needed to be in great position, because it starts off quite narrow, the climb, and you don't want them 50 riders back getting caught up in any crashes or anything. So I do that threshold effort with other teammates leading into the climb, and then we've got to do one big last burst to really make sure no one else is going to come around us to get Annemiek and Amanda Spratt into position. And and then up the climb, for us, it's all about making time cut. we've got to look at the next days riding the front and keeping our GC riders safe. So for this stage, it was a 60% time cut, which is quite large. And yeah, so I just made my way up the best I could, ate and drunk as much as I could as well. And yeah, didn't worry about anyone else around me. Just getting up there the best I can in the time.
Well, that's a major topic this year in today's men's Tour de France. I mean, we've had plenty of riders not make the time cut. It sounds like not too much of a worry for you on this day. It sounded like there was a pretty big gap. You also talk about fueling there, though. You know, what is your kind of go-to in this kind of situation? What's your, you know, is there a specific thing that the whole team is using, or are you, does each rider have their own, like, this is what I want and that's what you get kind of a thing? Like, how does that work when it comes to the team dynamic or individual dynamic on fueling? And what's your go-to?
So the team's sponsored by Stealth. So most teams do have a nutrition sponsor that they use. So in our bottles, we'll have like an energy and electrolyte mix, which for the Giro was really important because it was quite warm. So I like to race with water, and some others like to race with 2 mix just to get the extra carbs in as well. And we also have gels and some bars. But I find with tours, I like to eat more real food because you are racing 10 days straight, and the gels in that can upset your stomach a little bit, and you do just miss real food. So we have soigneurs that will make like little rolls with Nutella or jam or honey, and also rice cakes. Rice cakes are my favorite. So it's, yeah, they make different flavors and sweet ones and savory ones.
Rice cakes. Now, are we talking about
really
like
good.
Those puffy air, like 60
no
calorie things?
No.
I'm like, wait a second. Like, there's no calories in a rice cake. Why are you eating rice cakes? That's like what people eat on a diet. Like, what are we talking about here? So something totally different. We're talking about something very different.
Yeah. So these rice cakes are made out of real rice. So this one, I think they normally cook them in a rice cooker with maybe coconut milk or sweetened condensed milk. Some people put in some Philadelphia cheese. Like, all the recipes vary, but it's real rice, basically like rice pudding. Is probably the closest thing to it. And they put it in a tray and level it out. Sometimes there'll be sultanas or chocolate flavor, coconut flavor, and then you put them in the fridge and they just kind of set, and cut them up into small squares and wrap them in alfoil, and then we put those in our pockets. So it's basically like a rice pudding, and like rice is really good.
Like, you can kind of squeeze it out, like you can, like, it actually.
No,
like,
just like a cake. It's like a cake.
Yeah, it's like a cake. So they're pretty dense. And they stay together really well. And once, like, this one has had the recipe nailed, that they're brilliant. Yeah, really good.
It sounds good.
It's the only race food that I wanted to eat off the bike. So, you know, you're normally sick of race food. You're like, if I see another gel or a bar for the next month, I'm gonna, vomit. But them sort of things, you're like, I can eat them off the bike. And if you eat too many of them, they're pretty calorific, and you're gonna see it mightn't go down so well. But no, they are really good. Funny, you were just, Jessica, hit on quite an interesting topic, which again, a lot of people don't realize that watch these races, and we have actually mimicked quite a bit of it coming into certainly the shorter climbs, is how hard the riders go before the climbs. And, Jessica you had a big campaign early season with Tour of Flanders and, hit Newsblad and, all the early season classics. And there it's, it's very visible in the sense of, how much stress and how hard the riders are going before the climbs. And, from my perspective, I probably a lot of times suffered more on the flat before a climb than I did on the climb. Because, the people like Jessica are at the front making our legs scream and hurt before the climb, because they know they're going to pull off,
our finish line is 10K before a lot of other people.
Exactly. And, you know, that's it. And once you pull off anybody, again, in the Tour de France has watched Kwiatkowski, whenever he's, you know, came to the side of the road and he's physically stopped. I mean, he has stopped on the road. He's put himself into such a bag. You know, that dude ain't going anywhere. He's stopped because he's done his job. All he needs to do is get to the finish within the time limit. The slower, the better, because it means he's conserving more energy for the next day. Exactly the same as Jessica. And, you know, but what they do to themselves before they do that, before they stop, is, you know, a whole world of pain. Again, unfortunately, Jessica, you had to experience that day after day for, you know, a number of weeks, and it is very non-enjoyable for those people behind you trying to maybe wanting to get the result at the end. But I mean, that's your job. That's why, you know, your team was obviously so successful. So, but it is interesting. And again, anybody who's watching the race, and, you know, don't think of just the climb, look before it. I probably see more what's happening before the climb than actually the climb itself. So
that's always interesting to me. Yeah. So there's this idea in my head that, like, okay, rider like Jessica, you go to the front and your job is just make it really hard, right? And I think in my head, like, everybody behind is working as hard as everybody else to, or, you know, and this is maybe a bad assumption, you maybe make sure that your rider is right behind you, or the rider that you're trying to support is 3 riders behind you, and, or whatever it might be, 2 to 3 riders behind you, so that the draft is perfect for that rider, because everybody else that does not have a perfect draft then is suffering because of the suffering you're causing. Is that kind of how it works? Because it's kind of like, well, you're setting a hard pace and everybody's got to work really hard because you're setting a hard pace. So how are you supporting your lead rider? I think that might help some people watching who don't understand the technical aspect of how the drafting works and how you are supporting those riders. Can you give us a little insight into that?
So, yeah, when you're on the front doing all the work, even riders 2, 3, 4 back, they're still going to be copping some wind. Like, and when you have people 20, 30th wheel, they're not going to be getting any wind at all, and they're going to be saving the energy. So it might look silly that a team's on the front driving it, but there's always a reason, and it is worth spending a bit more energy to be at the front, keeping your leaders safe, than 30, 40, 50 wheels back, where crashes can happen, where you're not going to be in position for vital moments. So we went in with a plan of, you know, we're going to have to use energy sometimes. You can't just sit pretty in the middle of the bunch all day.
Positioning is the key, basically, in elite cycling, and being able to have a unit of riders. You know, we look at there, and, you know, just switch on the television and you'll see, you know, Geraint Thomas or you know, Froome sitting, you know, 5, 6 wheels back, and, you know, again, they're taking a wee bit more, using up a wee bit more energy than what they would have done if they're sitting in the middle of the bunch. But they don't puncture, they don't crash, touch wood. You know, they're certainly in the position, so whenever something goes right or goes wrong, that they're in position. And also what you find is whenever somebody like Jessica's at the front and they're absolutely caning it, the team leaders that are further back, they actually are like, oh, there's something going on, and they have to use a lot of energy to get to the front, because they're like, this is an anxious moment. They need to, you know, get to the front. And if Jessica's riding at 55 or 60 kilometers an hour before the climb, and they want to get to the front before the climb, they got to ride at 65 kilometers an hour. So they're using up a lot of energy to try and get back to the front of the group. So, you know, that causes them obviously to be a lot more fatigued before they even hit the potential climb. And you know, so again, you've seen it today, especially in the shorter climbs as well. It's even more prominent. And tomorrow's stage, the Tour de France, I don't think the fact it starts up a big bloody mountain is going to be.
What's a very short stage tomorrow? Very short stage tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the shortest in the Tour's history, as far as I know. At road stage, obviously the time trials are shorter, but the shortest road stage on it. From what I hear, you know, and you know, just seeing the interviews and reading the predictions, it's one of the most feared stages of the tour. It is the most feared stage, should I say. And you know what, Dan Martin was interviewed after the stage. Dave Miller, I was listening to him doing the commentary, and he said, you know, this is a stage that all the riders basically need to fear, and it's going to be, it's going to be absolutely off the bat from the flag drop. And tomorrow they have the gridding system. I think we talked about it, Nathan, on our first or second broadcast.
Yeah,
tomorrow's got the
Have either of you experienced? I've experienced a UCI gridding system because I've raced mountain bikes, right? But like, you guys don't ever get that stuff, right? Where they line you up in grids and say, "This is your spot. Deal with it."
The closest thing we'd get to that would be national champions lining up at the front. Or just your GC, like the jersey wearers. That's about it, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's never been this like situation where the start is going to be so fast that you have to like, this is where you are, because things are just going to go pow from the get-go here. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I wonder if there's going to change our predictions for tomorrow too, because it's going to be I think it's going to be a brawler for sure tomorrow. We'll see though. Maybe not. Maybe the teams will control things a little bit more too. You know, there might be some interests where the teams say, well, maybe we should chill out here. We do have some questions here real quick. Actually, Dan Fleeman is coming in with not just a question, but a comment here. And he says, Gallagher has a special type of recovery drink. You should ask him about it. The Black Gold. Hold on. I'm not going to ask Stephen about this. Jessica, do you know what Dan is talking about? Actually, what is the Black Gold? And do you take this? Do you take, or what? Or if you don't know what it is, what do you think what's your guess as to what this is?
I have no idea, but I'd say some form of beer.
I think it's stout. Yep, I think it's stout. That's what I think it is.
Yeah. It's basically everybody knows it's good for you, and
my goodness, this is not actual coaching advice. This is not actual coaching advice. Just so everybody knows, right there. Oh my goodness,
it's full of iron. That's what we say in Ireland. It's full of iron. It's full of good nutrients. So yeah. Anyway. There we go.
We also have some viewers over at Mixer that are making some questions. Weedmaster, hey, how's it going there, man? Nice name. He says, is this a VR game? So for those of you that are not familiar with Zwift, this is a massive multiplayer online game in which our riders are currently riding together with other riders from all over the world. They're currently using workout mode. As you can see up at the top, it does tell you when you're in workout mode. This is only in workout mode. The features that you're seeing here right now with the specific workout that Steven from Dig Deep Coaching wrote up and loaded up into the game, and all the athletes that jumped into this specific event experienced the same exact workout based on their fitness level. All the athletes you see on the right-hand side with their country flags, currently say their current watts per kilogram, are doing the exact same workout together that Dig Deep Coaching has put together. And then we're also in the middle of a virtual Grand Tour in which the riders are doing a replication of the winning moves of every stage of the Tour of France right now. If you're just tuning in, we do have a special guest today. Jessica Allen is here with us, as you can see, and she is last year's 2017 reigning Australian crit champion, actually, as well as I think you also have some rainbow stripes from junior years. And so quite the experiences, and also was a part of the team that won the Giro Rosa this year. Pretty amazing accomplishments, and so really, really awesome to have her here today. So thanks for your questions. If you have any more questions over at Mixer, please let us know, as I do know the world of Zwift cycling, the gaming side of it is not totally understood all the time, but essentially it's a game in which you control the avatar with the power in your legs. So pretty sweet situation. We do have racing, obviously group workouts, events that people join as group rides, or there's free world riding. So, and Master says, hi, you're a good biker, Jessica. It sounds like they are impressed. They are definitely impressed with your guys' ability to get on podiums and dance, actually. This is a great shot, actually, from the Giro Rosa that I definitely wanted to make sure we shared. What's going on here, Jessica? Real quick, like, what is this picture all about? Because this is an interesting one here to me. Do you guys have a specific type of celebration that you do?
We don't normally, actually, but this is after 10 days of racing and all the presentations. And they played our favorite team song, which at the moment is Bella Ciao. It's a Spanish song, actually. And yeah, they played it, so we all just started dancing. And
did you guys request that,
it was
or
raining
was it
at the
like,
time as well.
Did it just happen to happen? Did you request that, like, or did somebody know? And I mean, that sounds like that might have been organized a little bit.
Not this. We did before the start of the stages. All the teams sign on and they go on the podium and just wave to the crowd, and everyone gets to see who's racing. And every team had a specific song. So you sign on like I am there.
That's
and
awesome.
So we had Bella Ciao as our team song, and so every day we did a little bit of a dance. We started just sort of jumping up and down, and then did the can, and it didn't really get much further than that because we're cyclists, not dancers, and that was pretty obvious. But it was a bit of fun, and it's good to warm up a bit on stage and have the laughs and then be serious when we need to be serious.
We're not going to get too far off topic, but there definitely has been plenty of cycling videos of pro cyclist teams trying to do, whatever the latest YouTube thing was. And it is obvious that cyclists usually are not the best dancers for some odd reason. I don't know if it's the muscles that we build up or something or what it is, but we're very rigid.
That's what it is.
There you go. Coordination.
Got none of it.
That's why we're cyclists and not ball players or, team sports in the sense of a ball or a hockey stick or something where, coordination is pretty zero.
All right, so things have changed up a lot here in the workout now, Stephen, and we don't want to get too off of what is happening with the workout today. So now we're 255 for 10 minutes. Let's take a look at the stage again. What are we up to? Why are we doing this portion like this?
Okay, so we're now on the Col de Portillon, the last climb. Again, the long climb. So the Strava on this was 21 minutes 50. Or actually, sorry, this is the Strava was 24 minutes 43 seconds. Whenever I was building this particular workout, but I just looked at Robert Gesink, who was 6th in today's stage of the Tour de France. And I looked in his Strava just before we sort of went on air. And he actually done it today in 21 minutes 57. So according to Strava, just before we came in, I think he had the fastest time up that particular climb. So he actually done 406 watts for that climb. The climb before, the one, the Mente, actually done 398 watts.
Is this what we're looking at right here? Okay, so the Col de Mente that you're speaking about there, this is the other one, though. This is the Col de Mente.
Yeah. That's it. That was the one that everybody has just done, that horrible 23-minute effort. So that's what he done. He done 398 watts on that particular climb. And then actually what is really interesting is basically he goes another 7-8 watts more for the next climb, the one that we're on now, the Col de Portillon, and where he does it in 21 minutes 57, so just under 22 minutes at 406 watts. So that just goes to show the sustainability in their effort, which is probably one of the reasons why these guys are so good, is that they can keep doing these repetitive threshold efforts, time and time again. I'm not entirely sure of, Gesink's FTP, but I'm probably estimating that it is around maybe 410 to 420 watts. So it seems to be that he had a really consistent effort the whole way, and you can see there. Look at the purple line is his is obviously his power. You can just see in that that first third, there's a couple of wee spikes there that look to be the accelerations whenever that group started to split. And again, anybody who watched the highlights of today's stage, if you haven't watched it already, you can see that especially that first half of the climb. In fact, 3/4 of the way up that climb, Gesink was pretty much at the front and doing the majority of the work. So he was really the guy putting everybody under pressure before Adam Yates launched his attack to try and go for the stage win. But yeah, so that's power fell from Gesink, who was third, or who was sixth on today's stage. So 406 watts for 21 minutes. After, what had he done up to that point? Maybe 4 and a bit hours of racing. Yeah, that wouldn't be pleasant.
406. So watts per kilogram. I mean, we're talking.
Oh, I'd say he was in around probably 5.8 to 6 watts per kilo.
5 to 6, yeah, 5 to 6,
yeah,
all the way through.
Yeah, I'd say he's pretty skinny. So I'm not entirely sure. I'll try and find out here exactly what weight he is, but yeah. So yeah, it was a real.
So I have a question for Jessica then, real quick. Like, all right, so in the world of Zwift, FTP. What's your FTP? What's up? What's your FTP? Huh? Who are you? That's like the thing, right? No. I mean, not your FTP, but like, see, she gets it.
That's what everyone wants to know.
She's like, yeah, no problem. No, I mean, so, but like, that's kind of like the attitude. It's like, all right, so what's your FTP, huh? And like, what's your watts per kilogram for FTP? And like, a guy like Gesink, or these climbers, or even mountain bikers, I found for myself, for a certain type of cross-country mountain biking, I would focus a lot on FTP. I'd focus a lot on threshold efforts. For other racing, when it was like a punchier World Cup type course, I'd do more of my like 5-minute, 3-minute, and really focusing on that for like a month or something. But it depended on the workout. But there's some go-to type efforts for the kind of rider that you are. When you're thinking about your cycling, do you think about it being really well-rounded for all of your peak powers, or is there a few peak powers that you're really after for your specific talent and your role within your team? Because I know in my head as a pro cyclist, when I was, racing mountain bikes, there were a couple of peak powers that I needed to be focused on 100% to know that I was going to show up with my A game. I'm wondering if you have something similar like that.
Yeah, I'm also in the classics, actually, because the hills and everything we go over are so punchy. We focused a lot on explosive, really high VO2 max efforts, because that's what it's all about. You're just hitting these climbs, going max, and you did really need to be in your A game going into those races. And for tours like the Giro, a lot of riders go to altitude beforehand, particularly the GC riders, and they build on their threshold and also ability to attack up the climbs as well. And yeah.
Gotcha. Right on. So it sounds like it really was specific to whatever race that you were heading toward at that time. You'd be like, all right, well, we need to focus on these kind of peak powers at this time because this is what we're going to be up to in these races, rather than having more of just like a go-to for the discipline. You actually, as a Pro Tour team, are having multiple disciplines with multiple different kinds of races. Even with the talent that you have in the team, you still have to train specifically for the event that you're aiming at, it sounds like.
Yeah, yes and no. Like, you can't peak for every event. We have a lot of race days in a year. So we'll pick a few that we want to be peaking at, and the others will go in as fresh as possible, but you can't go fresh into every race. You've got to train through some races. So like for the next part of the season now, I'm doing a lot of work for team time trialing, because our team's racing the team's time trial at Worlds. So I'll be putting a lot of emphasis on ergo sessions, increasing my VO2 and threshold, and then everything else fits around it as well. So I'll be doing a lot of work on my time trial bike, but still work on the road in the hills. And you just make it work, do a bit of everything. But there's definitely more things you specifically focus on at different parts of the year.
Yeah, I could see that's a really different situation than some disciplines. Like some disciplines are like, all right, you got a 1-day race every 2 weeks and you got to be good. You know what I mean? And yeah, you'll have your A races, but it's kind of like A-B races throughout a season. You know what I mean? Where you don't really have too many of those. You just show up, train too much. At least in my mountain, in the mountain biking world, that's a little bit more like that when you're focused on a series. There are some C races that are just like throwaways that are a little different, but interesting. Stephen, what about you? And how would you approach racing? Is similar to what Jessica's saying there? Did you have some peak power numbers that you would think about, like this is what I got to be on with, or similar to what Jessica's saying, you got to kind of just roll with it? And yeah, there's a couple that you focus on, but otherwise you're just showing up trained to some others.
Yeah, I think what Jessica said there is a wee bit of an insight actually to how difficult it can be for the pro riders to focus on, because they race so much and they race against so many different types of terrain. It can be really difficult to, unless you're top rider in the world, like you're the number one rider, you can really pinpoint exactly the race that you're going to be. This is my what my team want me to win, and that's it. For the majority, for 99% of the riders, we've got to be trying good on all terrain. Okay, there's certain times, certain places that you need to be better at, but you got to try and perform on certainly on all terrain, and then whenever you're going for, like I said, the classics or something like that, you're working specifically for punchy climbs, real anaerobic efforts, big power efforts, etc., and stuff like that you try and build on. I had a couple of go-to. I used to have a climb that I used locally here to where I lived in Ireland, and I used it from what was a schoolboy the whole way through junior and late riders, and it was basically it was about 11 minutes long, 12 minutes long, and I would have used that not so much to even if I was going for a race that didn't include, climbs of that length, it was always a very good indicator, because I knew the climb that well, and I knew how I would feel at certain points on this climb, that how I was going, and it was really good gauge without even looking at a power meter or your time. Basically, halfway up that climb, I kind of knew if my form was good or it was bad, and that was always my sort of go-to, even more than a 20-minute climb. It ended up being about 11 minutes to 12 minutes long, but that was sort of my go-to. And if I want a confidence boost, I would go to it, hopefully do a good time. If I didn't do a good time, I blamed the headwind. So yeah. Anyway, I won each time.
I actually had a similar course that took me somewhere between 11 and 13 minutes for a local TT. I think for some reason that was a go-to for me as well. That's interesting. Just to relate to that I had a time trial course that was like, all right, if I can hit these times, or I was always trying to beat my Strava on there, my the current whatever it was, happened to hold the KOM locally, of course, but no one's trying, no one's taking that one from me. Come on now. But that was always the goal, is to hold on to that too, of course. That's the pride coming through. But interesting that it's similar to you there with that 12-minute effort. I wonder if there's something to that. But so let's talk a little bit about that, though, with how much you have to race. Jessica, I know you had the Giro and then didn't even know. So I mean, let's talk about, like, you didn't know you were doing the Giro, or I wasn't quite clear on that. And then all of a sudden it was like, now you got to go do the Tour. Like, how did that all play out? And tell that story a little bit, if you can share that with us.
Yeah, so we get a race schedule. We get one for the year, which is a pretty accurate indication of what we're doing. And then you get past the classics, then we have a team camp, reassess where everyone's at, and then sort out who's racing what for the second half of the season. So I wasn't down to do the Giro this year. And a week before the Giro, one of our teammates crashed out training, and she fractured her pelvis in a few places. But we didn't realize it was so bad until 3 days before the Giro. So I was a reserve rider, and so just got thrown in. So I was pretty nervous, to be honest, because I wasn't in the best condition I wanted to be for the Giro. But it is what it is, and I'm fit enough to get through it. So I did, which was good. And then during the Giro, one of our teammates crashed and broke her collarbone. And so I got thrown into La Course as well, which was a one-day event alongside the Tour de France, only 2 days after the Giro. So it was a really big block for me, the longest block of racing I've ever done. And to not be in the best condition I wanted to be. It took a good week to recover from it, but I was happy I got through it in the way I did.
I mean, 2 days after the finish of the Giro, that's usually when you're feeling worse. The worst, I would think, is like 2 days after the final one of the hardest races you've ever done, and then bam, you're jumping right into the Tour. I mean, how did that first day feel? I mean, were you ready to? Was you surprise yourself with the recovery, or was it just like, no, I'm surviving?
I was pretty wrecked, to be honest. The day after the Giro, straight after the Giro that day, we drove 4 or 5 hours to a hotel, stayed the night, and then the next day we drove 6 hours to France. So like the recovery wasn't great, but everybody's in the same boat. And once we got to France, we just went for an hour and a half ride just to spin the legs, which was really important. If you don't do anything on the rest day, particularly when you traveled so much, the body can really shut down and you can feel worse the next day. So, come race day, I was feeling pretty average. My body was, pretty done by then. So I didn't have the best race, but Annemiek and all the girls really had a great race. Annemiek won that. And it was in a similar finish to today, actually. It was a downhill finish. And it was a pursuit basically between her and Anna van der Breggen on a descent. And Annemiek just won right in the last 50 meters. I think it was the best finish of a bike race I've ever seen.
That's great.
It was. I think we talked about it actually on our show, Nathan. I think I pretty much said anybody who wants to see the best finish ever was unbelievable. It certainly was impressive. Absolutely.
That catch was amazing, and well, it was amazing for you guys, and then very heartbreaking, I think, for the other team at the same time. But that's what bike racing is all about. Mm-hmm. You know, it's you take the risks and the victories and the losses. So it's that looked like an amazing accomplishment though for the team. What is amazing to me is that it sounds like it sounds like there was a lot of women who came directly over from the Giro. Is that right?
I think probably 90% of the peloton came directly. Everyone was absolutely knackered. There were a few teams that rocked up really didn't do the Giro. And so that's always a bit interesting because, you know, they picked for that particular event and you're not sure how everyone else is going to pull up. But Annemiek pulled up really well, and Anna van der Breggen, who got second, she didn't race the Giro. So that was a very big win for Annemiek to win that against someone that's come in fresh as well.
Oh that's quite an accomplishment, actually. Stephen, go ahead. Sounds like you got an idea here.
Talking about accomplishments, or everybody's just got over the last game of the day, so I'm sure they're ready for a break before last week running to the finish. So thankfully that's all the climbs done. So we don't have a real long descent off this. We're only having 5 minutes of rest coming down off this climb, and then we're going into a 3-minute 100% FTP effort at 105 RPM. So we're mimicking fast, high cadence, high speed, low torque effort coming in, and we're not doing any jumps at the end of it. Again, you know, we're not a sprinter today. We're not going for the stage win. We're going for the actual, GC, maintain their position and whatnot. So that's why we've got 3 minutes to 100% to finish off just before we come to our cool down. But, you know, I think a lot of people are going to be caught out by that high cadence. So, you know, anybody who's there, I would certainly try and, again, from a training benefit, if you find it difficult to ride at 100% of your FTP at that cadence, I would prefer to probably bring the percentage down of your FTP than your cadence, because the training benefit you're going to get from being able to spin, being able to get that frequency, getting your body movement going at a high cadence after having done, basically, you know, they'll have done 40 odd minutes of threshold by now in total of the stage, is a real good training adaptations. So it's a bit like we used to do. I remember doing a bit of motor pacing after a big hard session just to get a bit of leg speed in the legs. So, you know, we're trying to add a wee bit of that in. So certainly, you know, really focus on that cadence here in that last 3-minute effort here that we're about to hit pretty soon.
All about cadence here in this last 3 minutes. Make sure It sounds like that, bring down the FTP. A lot of people might not know this, but in Zwift, there is this cool little button. We'll go ahead and go to large screen here, and there is this up and down arrow. And if you're struggling on the day, well, if you're feeling like Superman, you can bring this on up to 110%, or you can bring it on down to 90%. So that gives me a solid 15 watt, 10% difference there if I wanted at 165. So you can go up or down with that. And it sounds like for this next 3 minutes, from what Coach Gallagher's saying here, you need to bring it down and bring the cadence up if you're struggling on the day. We do have a question coming in through your comment, actually, for Jessica. If you do want to interact with her, you can do so here live with us, just so you know. Now, it's not from a social media spot, but it is from the chat over at Mixer. And Master saying that this is for Jessica. Is it fun going all around the world racing? And, that is a great question because, anyways, I'll let you answer the question, but I think that's an interesting one for sure because we've had all kinds of different answers on that, and it's all different per person. But what's it like racing all over the world? I mean, it sounds like a lot of travel and work, but also very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, it has its pros and cons. More pros for me than cons, for sure. Cycling has allowed me to travel around the world. I think I would have even been to Europe unless I was a cyclist. It was the first time I ever set foot in Europe was when I was about 16 for Junior World Championships. And the places I've been to, the people I've met all around the world is really awesome and made friends for life and memories for life as well. And yeah, like the traveling, it's tough, but it's a lot easier than when I first started with the national team. We did a lot of driving, so we'd be driving from Italy to Belgium to Czech to Spain to France, and so your recovery days are spent sitting in a car for 12 to 14 hours. Whereas now, being part of Mitchelton Scott, we get to fly to races, which can be annoying when flights get delayed and stuff, but it's a lot better than driving. And once you're in Europe, everything's no further than 2-hour flight away, which is pretty good. And you just get used to the travel. It's just part of the job. And you just get it done. Yeah.
Racing in Europe, very different than racing in the States. Is it? I would think it's very different as well from racing in Australia, where I think it sounds like it's similar, where such a large country, very spread out as far as the cycling goes, and there's a lot of travel, long hours to get to all the different races. Whereas in Europe, everything's tight, and you can find national level events and world level events within a much closer proximity to each other. At least that's what it sounds like, and why probably cycling's so big over in Europe, and everybody heads over there once they want to go pro.
Yeah, definitely. In Australia as well, I live in Perth, so most of the big racing's over east, and Australia being so big, to fly from Perth to Melbourne, it's a 4-hour flight. So the travel's actually longer when I'm in Australia. And so I enjoy being in Italy and in Europe with the travel. It's a lot easier.
It looks like Stephen Gallagher just linked a link, actually. It looks like over in the Facebook there. Want to talk about what that's all about real quick?
Yeah. So what we've been doing is we have a sign up for this whole 3 weeks of racing and workouts mimicking the Tour de France. So for anybody who wants to or hasn't done all the rides or wants to do all the stages, if they click on that link and sign up, they'll get workouts, they'll get PDF downloads, they'll come into our the automations that it'll send them the stages that we have done in the past 2 weeks. So even if you miss, for example, this week, you'll be able to get them workouts emailed to you next week. So if you click on that, sign up, you'll be able to get lots of cool content as well. There's lots of information about our coaching and about all our services and products going forward. We're hopefully going to do more stuff as well like this, so keep up to date with lots of sort of training and new information to help you with your own cycling. But you'll also get these workouts, so you'll be able to get all your Tour de France workouts. So in your own time, you'll be able to complete them, just like a lot of people here have been doing for the last 2.5 weeks. So, yeah.
It's been some big days. Let's chat a little bit about, these guys are about 43 seconds ago. It looks like they're getting into just a, got away on the climb. I think that's the idea here, and are just holding on to a threshold effort, 105 RPM, holding on to as much as they possibly can to get across the line. Solo win, GC style, it sounds like, is what we're being replicated here. And actually, similar to what happened today. Spoiler alert, but somewhat of a replication to the winning move.
Well, the winning move today, anybody who's seen the winning move today, it was just, phenomenal. That guy, Alaphilippe, is just, crazy. Again, spoiler alert, he won the stage.
You finally got your prediction too, I think. I mean, you've been saying Philippe for quite a few of the predictions, actually, and we do go into predictions during the cool down. We'll start that part of the program today, but Philippe grabbed the win, and it looked like it was in a pretty stamp of like domination on that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. He was again that finish, and unfortunately Jessica's teammate, you could say, from Mitchell and Scott, from the men's team, Adam Yates, had a real unfortunate crash. I don't know, Jessica, if you were watching it, but it was really it just was heartbreaking basically for him. Whether he would have stayed away or not was certainly going to be an exciting finish. But it was just a phenomenal, another just crazy day in the Tour de France, to be honest with you. So I think this tour has been full of excitement and
is there a lot of crossover?
It was
not crossover, interaction between the men's and the women's team. Do you guys train together much? Is there any team camps or any, like how much following of each other's racing do you guys do between the men's and the women's teams, Jessica?
Yeah, we definitely follow each other's racing quite a bit with social media, but we don't actually get together that often. Everyone lives all over the place in Europe. We don't have a set base. I'm based in Italy this year, just out of Varese, but a lot of people based in Spain, and you can live basically wherever you want. We have a lot of team camp just with the women's teams, and we get all the staff together, but it is hard to find a time where the men and women's team are both available. Sometimes in the off season it might happen in Australia, but because you have riders all over the world, it's hard to be in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, separate schedules as well, with the men's and women's racing. So makes a lot of sense. It'd be really hard with how often, we're talking about that a lot during the program today, how often you all are racing. It would be really difficult to coordinate like that. Let's go ahead and look at the stage for tomorrow and get into our predictions here. We'll just go big screen with it here real quickly. This is what is being said to be the hardest stage in the tour this year, 65K. Both of you, first let's go to Jessica and then we'll go to Steven. If this was in front of you tomorrow, what are you thinking? What are you planning? How are you recovering? What is the tactic on that kind of a stage? 65K, a Cat 1, and an HC, all within 65 kilometers. 8.7% is the final climb up the Saint-Lary-Soulan. I want to say, is that where they're that's where they're finishing, and it's the Col du Portet. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So this looks like a mountain bike race. To be honest, this looks like, I mean, full on from the gun. So Jessica, what would you be thinking looking at this? Like literally, like let's say you're racing this tomorrow. Like you have to go race this tomorrow. Yeah. What are you thinking?
I'd definitely be pretty bloody nervous about it, but I'd probably do a little warm-up, a 15-minute warm-up, considering you are starting up a hill. But I also would have looked at, particularly for me, the time cut. I know I'm not going to be winning a stage like this, and I'm going to be fairly far behind. So I'd be looking at the time cut, working out what I need to do to make sure I'm going to be starting again the next day. And particularly that first climb, trying to stay in contact with as many people as possible without spending too much energy and going into the red too much. And then making a lot of time back on the descents, actually. And breaking it down, working through it, and and no one's going to have an easy day tomorrow. No one at all. And
you have a prediction for tomorrow?
You've got to suffer.
Actually, Rogers, who I think is showing his country flag a little bit, is saying Thomas. And interesting he's saying Thomas, so he thinks that Thomas is going to take it, or Yates, depending on his crash. So he's giving a little Mitchell and Scott love there, it sounds like. So, you got a prediction for tomorrow, Jessica, at all?
It'd be great if Yatesy could get up, or someone else from our team early in the move. But I don't know, maybe Chris Froome might decide to attack tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow's the day.
Tomorrow's the day. Yeah, I think everybody's been wondering. When is that day going to be? So that's a really good point, I think, Jessica. Stephen, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
I'm thinking tomorrow's going to be horrendous. If I was riding it, I would be pretty worried. I mean, a lot of people are looking at this, and especially the non-cyclists or people without much experience, they'll go 65Ks. That's not too bad. What they're going to do is they're going to race that first climb. A lot of the guys like it's the last climb. And, I can just see a lot of GC guys, going off the bat, and it's going to be super hard. So even if you're not wanting to be overly aggressive at the start, the fact that it goes up a big hill right at the start means you're going to have to be at a real high effort, early on. And apparently that last climb, I don't particularly know that last climb. I don't think I've ever ridden it. I might have done, but might have been blank from my memory. But again, what I heard today, and certainly reading a lot of articles saying that it's probably the hardest climb of the tour. It certainly is the highest altitude, 2,150 meters or something, I think it said on that profile. So and time cut, again, it's going to be there's going to be a lot of people worried about the time cut because it's so short, because it's going to be so hard from early on, and the fact of 3 long climbs. I think you could see, unfortunately, so a lot of guys maybe not making the time cut tomorrow. So I was going to go with Chris Froome until Jessica, you've ruined that. So that's who I was particularly going to go with. So I think maybe somebody like Warren Barguil. He had a crash today. He has been looking quite strong. He has been looking good. He's not up there in the overall. Maybe he can slip away a wee bit. So I think maybe if he can recover from his crash, depending how bad he was today, I'm going to go with Warren Barguil since Jessica has taken my first choice. So
these are really intense. I mean, I'm looking at these climbs, and they are not short. They're not short, and we're looking at 6.7%, 8.3%, 8.7% on average for these climbs with how long they are. I was going to go with, I always get the name pronunciation incorrect, but Roglic? Excuse me if that's totally incorrect, but I think it's a little bit more, and I'm seeing this. I was actually going to go with this, and now I got some critique from Rogers over in the chat actually saying it's the climbs are too long. He prefers short and sharp, but I think he's correct there actually. And Chris is saying that Dumoulin and Thomas are going to be challenged a little bit more on these days. So this is a tough one. This is a really tough one to try and I'm gonna go 2 for Froome. You can do 2. We can do 2. I'm gonna say today is the day. Well, tomorrow is the day, and I'm gonna say that perhaps this is the day that they've been waiting to say, because every time Chris wins Froome wins a race, there's that one day where he just, and not always just one day, but usually there's that one day where he just goes shoom and he's gone, and everybody else is like nowhere near him.
Dominates it.
And just completely dominates it. And I felt like now at the same time there's been questions because of so many Grand Tours in a row, and we've seen him fall off pace at times. Is that really where things are at? Is he coming around with form more as the race goes on, or is there a certain point that you just can't do Grand Tours over and over and over again at this level and continue it? So I think tomorrow is going to tell, and I'm going to say that he's always proven to be the right horse to bet on. So I'm going with Froome as well on that one. So
Funny,
any other predictions?
just let
us know, guys. Go ahead, Stephen.
Well, I'm just actually looking at our workout for tomorrow, and I don't want to, make anybody depressed or anything about our workout for tomorrow, but I'm just looking at the Strava times for tomorrow's final climb, and Stefan Kruijswijk actually has the fastest time on Strava up the final climb in 1 hour 3 minutes. So that's going to give you an indication of how hard that climb is. So the fastest Strava on the final climb guys are doing tomorrow is 1 hour 3 minutes. So if that's the case, and you're in the gruppetto or you're at the you're at the back, it's going to take you an hour and a half, I don't know, 1 hour 20, something like that. To get up that climb, and you've already 2 climbs before it. It's it's going to be completely crazy. It's going to be great to watch. Terrible.
It's going to be a very entertaining day to watch. Both of you guys going to be tuning in tomorrow? Then obviously for the tour, I would assume. Or is it a training day, Jessica? Are you out training tomorrow?
I've actually got a double session tomorrow. So I've got a brutal ergo session, which I'm going to do in front of the TV, I think, and watch it unfold.
Right on. Awesome. Well, good luck with that session. We're definitely going to be watching the rest of the season. What's up next for you this season? What do you have coming up?
On Friday, I head to London and race Ride London on Saturday, which is a Camise type circuit. It's about 5 kilometers long, right through the center of London.
The Prudential Ride London.
It's only a short.
You're talking about the yeah. That's a huge thing with Zwift. There's rides going on right now, training specifically for the Prudential Ride on London. So very cool that you're heading on over there. You'll probably see Zwift there.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll be great. But it should be good. We have a really great sprinter in our team, Yolene. So we're hoping to get her up for the win.
Awesome. And then after that, World Champs, obviously on the mind a little bit. Are you heading there or no?
For the team's time trial, I'm hoping for Mitchelton Scott to make that team. But for the road race, it's a really hilly World Championships this year. So it's probably unlikely I'll go. But there's still a lot of racing before then. We have a team's time trial and World Tour road race in Sweden in August, Tour of Norway, Plouay World Tour, and Holland Ladies Tour, as well as Madrid Challenge with the Volta. So still got a lot of racing before the World Championships.
Awesome. Well, we'll be watching for sure. Rogers, who's actually in chat, long-time Zwifter, says he's going to be at the Ride London cheering you on. It sounds like from the sidelines. So good to hear, Rogers. Thanks a lot for that. Ken Holly, Andy Harrison. Andy Harrison, he's been here for all the broadcasts as well. He's jumping in here and letting us know that his pick for tomorrow is Chris Froome. Plus, he will take yellow. And that's actually, I think, what me and Jessica see. That's why Jessica's in the scene here with me, because we got this right here. We're on the same wavelength going on here. All right. Both of you, I thank you so much for all your time. Appreciate all of your insights and all the work that you are doing from Dig Deep Coaching. If everybody hasn't done so already, head over to digdeepcoaching.com/GT2018. Sign up for the virtual Grand Tour. You can still get all these workouts. Essentially, it's a month of free workouts. Amazing program put together by Steven and all of them over at Dig Deep Coaching. And you can still join the rest of the workouts this week, replicating the moves. Especially tomorrow's stage is going to be interesting. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. And both of you, Jessica, thanks a lot. Steven, thanks a lot. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, guys. All right, and I'm Nathan Garrett coming at you from Zwift Community Live. We'll be back tomorrow with Dig Deep Coaching stage number 17, and as well as the weekly wind-up. Plenty more going on this week on ZC as well. We've got racing with the Chop, as well as the rest of the Dig Deep Coaching stages. So if you haven't done so already, hit that follow button over on your favorite TuneIn platform, YouTube, Facebook, Mixer, or Twitch. And as always, everybody, great job to all the riders. Thanks a lot for all the viewers who have tuned in, and ride on.